Daniel, what do you think of this shirt? Can you see this shirt? What do you think of this shirt? Because it buttons up all the way from the bottom. It's like a dress shirt, but then it's got no collar.
You see, so I like that. I do like the shirt, but David Taylor has this shirt, Chael, and it's called the collarless polo. Have you ever seen that? It's like a three-button shirt. It's like a three-button shirt, but it stops right here, and it kind of comes down like that collar on your shirt. It's an amazing shirt. Check it out. It's called the collarless polo. It's very nice. What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's your local bad guy, Chael Sonnen. What's up, Chael P? How you doing, my guy?
I'm fired up, man. I did not get a lot of sleep last night. I was actually watching you. You were in the corner of Zepeda. I thought that was an awesome wrestling match. It closed the gap. I mean, basically got major decision about 2 weeks ago. He closes the gap all the way to overtime. And, Coach, you were a big part of that. That takedown at the very beginning of the match that you argued and got waved off should have been waved off. But a lot of other coaches wanted to have stepped up for their athlete. I appreciated that about you.
It was awesome, man. I love for that kid, Bo Bassett, and Daniel to have that rivalry. A lot of times, kids don't get that, and it doesn't help you improve. Chael, today on the show, listen, we're going to talk about UFC 310 later in the show. But first, you know, dude, Conor McGregor, I saw him with the schmo the other day. Did you see him in the schmo?
No.
Dude, there's a video of Conor McGregor. Get your phone. Put Conor McGregor dancing with the schmo.
Oh, he dances with him. Are they out at the club? Is this where he was touching those girls' hair? It was in the ring.
It was in the ring. I don't know if it was at bare knuckle. I don't know where it was, but Conor McGregor and the schmo are dancing inside the middle of the ring. 2 weeks ago, Conor McGregor was messing with Bukayo Saka, the star forward from Arsenal. Do you see it? Do you see the video?
Look at Schmo. Schmo's stealing the stage.
He's a bad dancer. Schmo's a bad dancer, man.
I think they're even singing. They got like a sing-along going. I don't know. There's a piece of theater there. I don't know. I got to tell you, Conor McGregor, the promoter, as obnoxious as his shtick is, like he's coming out and he's yelling, he's calling out Mayweather, he's cursing, but it kind of works in the short. I got to tell you, like if they just do little 10-second clips of Conor on that stage, he does a pretty good job. He brings an energy. He's got a purpose. I've seen other guys get hired. They walk up there because there's a paycheck. Like, I felt that Conor was involved. I felt he had a passion. I haven't complimented Conor in a long time. I got to give him that. I thought he made the bare knuckle product interesting.
He made it better. You know, you watch him do all this stuff from being on the soccer pitch trying to kick the star forward to dancing with the schmo to saying to double the pay of every fighter in the bare knuckle. He seems to be everywhere. But in the midst of all that, Chael, like through all of that chaos, he calls out Dan Hooker.
Yes.
He calls out Dan Hooker.
Yes.
And we're not going to have the same conversation. We're not doing is Conor McGregor going to fight again? We're just not doing it anymore because at the end of the day, we've done it. And we kind of came to the conclusion a little bit ago that it might be over for McGregor. So we're going past that. What does that do for Dan Hooker? And how big is it, Jill, that Dan Hooker, who a couple years ago, honestly, we sat on this show, me and Ryan Clark, and we talked about him retiring because it looked like it was done. Especially, hey, you remember that sad photo when Dan Hooker fought in the middle of COVID? He gets back home. He's behind a guardrail, and he's 100 feet from his children, and he can't get to him. It was the saddest stuff ever. We were talking about retirement. Now he's getting called up by Conor McGregor. How big is this turnaround for Hooker?
74 days he had to stay in Fight Island alone before he came home. I mean, the UFC had got, like, there was nobody to have lunch with or to visit with. 74 days he went over there, not to mention the pain of defeat. He had fought Chandler, if you'll recall. He had lost that fight.
Yep.
What a mess. I mean, some real times in life that you get tested to find out, am I a fighter or not? Like, am I learning these principles? That was one for Dan Hooker. And you know why I take the time to tell that story? I love that Conor's called him out. There is absolutely no truth that this fight is in the works. Just so everybody understands, Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor ran into each other at this bare knuckle. They were in the ring. It turns out those guys are kind of quasi-friends. Dan Hooker even said the quote, Conor and I are cut from the same cloth. They just like each other. They get each other. So Conor called him out, told the world about the fight, and is trying to pursue the fight to actually help Dan Hooker because Red Panty Night is still real. And I only have to tell you that because, no, Dana's not doing this. They don't even have a show on the date that Conor called it out for.
Wait, he said a date?
Yes, he did. He said February 1st in Abu Dhabi, of which the UFC is not booked. So, I mean, this was really just kind of talking. But your question is perfect, Daniel, because to repeat what you just said to me, you said, Chael, how much does this help Dan Hooker? It helps a lot, and I like to see that happen. If anybody is a true BMF, and we got a bunch of them out there, but boy, that guy, man, he's cutting the line. And he got over on Gamrot, which he wasn't supposed to do. The rankings said he couldn't do it. The odds said he couldn't do it. He fights him right at home. Worst possible matchup that he could have, and he found a way. And I love that he's getting his due. I love that Conor saw that and acknowledged it. I love this idea of pulling Dan Hooker up. Dan Hooker had a broken arm one time and conducted his interview with Joe Rogan with a smile on his face. Dan Hooker is the real McCoy. I would love for something big to happen for him. It's not going to be Conor in February in Fight Island, but I like that theme, and I like where they're headed.
You know what's kind of funny? It's like, man, it's also like Conor literally lives in his own world. Like he set a fight card in February. You can't just make dates. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. But again, it's almost like the rich dude, the rich billionaire that's like losing his mind and he like doesn't realize that he's now on a different planet. Conor's like living on his own planet at this point, and I'm here for it. It's entertaining. It's entertaining to see that. But in the call out of Dan Hooker, it tells you that, yo, you laid the foundation of a story I was telling, but I didn't know the details. I knew Dan Hooker had been gone for a long time. I didn't know how long he was gone. I didn't know why he was separated from his family. But I do recall that photo. I know how hard it was at that time for Dan Hooker or to be a Dan Hooker fan. But now, the guy today, I don't know what happened, dude. I don't know how he made that change, how he went from being a guy that got submitted by Islam, remember, rear arm triangle, very easily, did not look competitive. He gets knocked out by Michael Chandler in the first round, doesn't look competitive, and he had lost to Dustin Poirier, or I think he lost to Dustin Poirier before that. It looked like it was done. To being a guy that Gamrot fight was the worst matchup he could have had. He not only won, he broke Gamrot down to win. And in the third period, he used, and that's what more fighters should do, Chael. More fighters should actually use the guys. Look, people hate wrestling. They just don't like it. They don't like when people keep taking you down. But you have to be in such phenomenal shape to employ that as a strategy for 15 minutes. That if you could do what Dan Hooker did, it's going to exhaust that guy that's trying to take you down for 15 minutes. Gamrot's in tremendous shape. But because Dan was able to get back to his feet, because he was able to defend takedowns, Gamrot got tired, and the whole time, he's putting damage on him. He's putting damage on him. This dude, if he had the ability to fight McGregor, he should take it. I don't care that he says that they're friends. I don't care that he says that they're cut from the same cloth. If that fight is presented, he has to take it because, as you said, Red Panty Night is real. And if he can get a McGregor fight, honestly, at this point, I think he might beat him. I really think he might actually beat him.
Yeah, and Daniel, everything that you laid out is actually somewhat concerning for me. I am a massive Dan Hooker fan, if I haven't made that clear by now. You referenced his fight with Dustin Poirier. That was on free TV. It went all 5 rounds. That was one of the great 155-pound matches ever, and it was a split decision. Dustin was ranked number 5 in the world at the time, and one licensed judge said that Hooker beat him. But it was still one of these things where you start slipping. Eventually, down that timeline, Hooker left the weight class. He cuts down to 145. I have no idea how he made that. He comes back to 55. So our point and premise that as great as he is and as loved as he is, there's not a lot of things you can do with him. You could give him a fight just to give him a fight, but there's not a lot of things you could really do. And that's where I love this Conor thing, but it also concerns me for all the reasons that you just stated. I do not want Hooker thinking he's fighting Conor in February of next year in Fight Island where the octagon won't even be set up. I do not want the next Michael Chandler situation to happen to Hooker, and I could only imagine how seductive it would be to get drawn into that. What if? And hope. And if I just wait a little bit longer. And he said, I have his word. He said, it doesn't work that way. I don't want Hooker to get held up, though I do love the idea of those two matched up and getting in there. It simply is fiction, which is fun for right now. It's fun for a week. If you want to run with some of these headlines, please don't put your career on hold. Please learn from what Michael Chandler painfully went through.
First off, before I get to my point of how he could capitalize on this fight with him and Dustin Poirier, it was really, really good. The fight last weekend, Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira, just equally as good as the Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker fight. I was enthralled, Chael. All the wrestling in that fight, greatest thing that I could have ever watched. Now, for me to say and build off of your point, you want to know how he can capitalize on this? You are right, Chael. There isn't much he can do. He's not going to fight for the belt. Conor McGregor isn't fighting him. But because his name is ringing so many bells now, use that fight to push you into a fight with a guy like Justin Gaethje. That's how he can capitalize off this call-out, right? Before, a guy like Justin Gaethje probably was not thinking about a Dan Hooker as a potential opponent. But when you getting called out by Conor McGregor, what's he ranked now? What is Hooker rank? Could somebody put this in the Jake? Do you put this in the chat, please? What's he ranked now, Chael? He's got to be in the top 10. Now,
yes,
you use that to push you forward into fight with, he's ranked 5th. I mean, now you can use that to push you into a fight with Justin Gaethje. And guess what? Now, if you can, I mean, you're looking at, you're almost on the short list of guys that can fight for the belt now. It's hard for me to say it. It's crazy for me to say this. If he can get a fight with a Justin Gaethje, and if he wins, he would clearly be the #1 contender. Yep. And all that is due to his hard work. But it also helps for Conor to be calling him out, because now you get yourself a match forward by taking that call out and using it as jet fuel. It's crazy.
Hey, when you're talking about title fights at 155, I believe that Paddy the Baddy is 2 wins away. If he wins his next 2 fights, I believe not only would they give him the nod and opportunity, I think that we would all come out and say that he needs it. Now, one of those fights can be against a good, tough guy, but the second one, it's got to be against the top guy. And I'm only sharing that because Dan Hooker, with his code and his ethics, and Paddy's kind of viewed as like this newer guy. He's not. He's married with 2 kids. He's 31 years old. I mean, Paddy isn't the little boy that he keeps getting treated as. Oh, and by the way, he's 2 ass whippings away from fighting for the crown. So I just think that somebody should start aligning themselves with that young man. And I love the idea of giving a big push to Hooker. And if Hooker can come in and grab it like he did with Gamrot and run, we would all support it. And the other side of it is, if you got to do the job and you got to polish up Paddy, it's still a massive opportunity. And you don't know how many fights you're going to have left. If you can go out and get those big ones, such as this Conor McGregor talk, such as your Justin Gaethje talk. But I love that for Hooker, and I love that he's in these conversations. I think he's earned it, and I also think he deserves it, being ranked #5, and I also believe the fans will get behind him.
I thought it was over. I really did think it was over. And now, dude's got a whole bunch of tattoos. He's got blonde hair. His eyes, I swear to God, when I see him now, he's got this darkness to him, man. I don't know if it's all the black tattoo and ink on his body, but his eyes look a little like scary. He's like, got these really black eyes. Like, what if he's wearing like black contacts or something?
What do the tattoos have to do with it? Wait a minute, you said I thought it was over and now he's got a bunch of tattoos. What do you mean? Like he's changing his image, or like that made him tougher? What was the tattoo reference?
He told me that he unlocked customization. You know, in video games, how you can like put tattoos and do it. He said, I unlocked the customization, DC. I dyed my hair. Tattoos everywhere. He's crazy. He's dark. Dan Hooker's dark, and I'm here for it, man.
Me too.
You know, Dan Hooker doesn't have a date. Conor McGregor was rumored, or he told us he was fighting in Vegas in December, that's UFC 310. But he's not. You know, Dana always goes, it's going to be a very fun fight card. It's going to be an amazing fight card. And the general fan goes, oh my goodness, Conor McGregor's coming back. We had an idea it wasn't going to happen because Conor has kind of toyed with this for long enough. But he did announce UFC 310 main event and fights that are on the card. He started with Belal Muhammad and Shavkat Rakhmonov. What did you think, Chael?
It's the fight. there's no way around this fight. It seems like there was a little bit of a resistance here because there's so many things that go into play, including the press conference, including the poster. Do I have recognizable guys? I mean, this is a promotion after all. It was the right fight. It needed to be supported the right way with the rest of the card, which I know we're going to get to, but Daniel, it was. I was a big believer that Kamaru Usman and his name should be at the table, at a minimum at the table. And at the table is an expression for when you're down to the final 2 to 3 guys. I thought that he should be. Kamaru could fight for a title right now. If Kamaru stubs his toe anywhere else in his career, that is no longer true. He does not have any room for any more losses. And I also thought that Rakhmonov and Ian Gary, they were building for it. I think that would have been the wrong matchup. I just thought that was the matchup that was going to happen, which again would leave Kamaru available. But this fight, it's the fight, man. And quite frankly, I don't think that Dana could have rolled this out with the success that it's receiving without the supporting cast. But the rest of this card with that on top, it makes perfect sense, DC.
Here's the thing, though, Chael. I believe that we should tip the cap to Belal Muhammad. We speak about this constantly, right? We speak about figuring out a way to extend, figuring out a way to line your pockets. We call it going into business for yourself. Belal Muhammad's not doing that. To go into business for yourself, you would have pushed for the Kamaru Usman fight, regardless of if he had lost 3 fights in a row. You're pushing for the name to try to get a payday, to try to get the biggest name in the division. Belal doesn't do that. Tip of the cap, he went in the opposite direction. He took on the hardest person to fight. He didn't say, let me run it back with Leon Edwards. He's a long-reigning champion. Why doesn't he get an automatic rematch like so many others? He goes, Shavkat, okay, I'll fight him. We're talking about a dude from Kazakhstan, barely speaks any English, 18-0, 18 finishes. He's over. I mean, Shavkat's got to be like 6'3", 185 pounds. He can wrestle, which is Belal's greatest skill. He's an unbelievable striker. He's got 10 submissions. So all that wrestling that Belal employed against Leon Edwards could lead to submission attempts from Shavkat. I think that when you get a guy like Belal, and look, let's make no bones about it. He's not the biggest star. He's not the greatest pay-per-view draw. He's very popular because he's Muslim, and it's the largest religion in the entire world, so people follow him. But he doesn't equate to buys yet. When you don't have that, you put him in the toughest matchup, and that is what makes people tune in.
I am impressed with your honesty in the way that you just laid that out, DC. Very well done. And I got to tell you this. There's so many questions on it. I mean, for one, if Rakhmonov wins, okay, he's the world champion. But Daniel, can you imagine that? If he goes, big compliment. Daniel, if Rakhmonov becomes 19-0, he has the most impressive record. He will be the only undefeated champion in the organization. He will be the only undefeated champion aside from Khabib. And as I say that, Ilia Topuria's name's jumping in my head. Don't correct me in the comment section. Here's what I'm here to tell you. That is really something amazing. And what Rakhmonov would do as the leader of that division, who we would call out, who we would accept, I have a feeling he's going to do things a little bit different, and it's probably going to be very refreshing. It's probably going to be a lot like Islam. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. He's going to start talking about moving up to 185 and just do things that are fun. But I have overlooked Belal for my last time. If you understand, Kamaru Usman, let's just do the math real fast. Kamaru Usman is the only guy that you could argue without being laughed out of the room is a better 70-pounder than St. Pierre. You would lose that argument, but you could at least make it. He gets stopped not once but twice by Leon. We're in the Leon era, and all of a sudden Muhammad says not so fast. I mean, it's one of these things where Belal is the guy. You go look at who he's beat, even the Brady fight. The undercard over on Fight Island, Brady was undefeated, 15-0. Belal stops him. I mean, Belal really is that fantastic. So let's find this out. Just how good are you, gentlemen? Let's get you together, which is the brand promise of Dana White from 2001. The best will fight the best with no protection. And one other thing, you start to have other questions. Can Belal go the distance with him? Right? If Rakhmonov's going to beat him, is Rakhmonov going to finish him? Because by proxy, if he doesn't, I guess that would mean Belal's the hardest fight he's ever had. Like, there's a lot of compliments here for both guys. And one thing about this sport, DC, unlike wrestling that you and I came from, you win an Olympic title in wrestling, your next match, that title's not on the line. In this sport, you're all in. Everything you got, every record, your card placement, your belt, everything is in at all times. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Isn't that crazy, though? No matter what you do, one loss. And people forget about all the great things that you did. You know, Belal Muhammad, I don't know what happened, Chael, from the Brady fight to the Leon Edwards fight, because even though he was on that massive win streak, the fights looked competitive. They always looked like they were relatively tough. Even when he was beating on, I don't know if it was Wonder Boy or somebody in the Apex one time I was watching, he just kept taking him down and taking him down, and it didn't look low. It didn't look, though, like he was separating himself from the pack. In the Leon Edwards fight, it looked like he was the best welterweight in the world by far. He fought the absolute perfect fight. The pace was great. The striking was great. The wrestling was great. Leon Edwards had nothing for him, and that was amazing. And I believe that he should get some credit. Hey, you know what's crazy? So obviously they're still not telling us what to do quite, but chat is open. And I said Belal Muhammad's not the biggest star, right? I think the Belal Muhammad conversation is going a little too long. Like, it's going a little too long. And so when you start getting like multiple messages in the comment, it's like, come on, man.
DC, let me grab you real fast. You got Ian Gary on the card, but a real fan favorite that really does need to happen is just the return of Nick Diaz. He's going to go back to 70. They kept him and Luque together, which I think was a little bit of a surprise. I think 170 is a surprise.
Chill.
I mean, let me ask you this before we get into that.
Ian Gary's
does
not
it
on the
happen?
card. You can't will him on the card, Jill.
But does it happen? That's all I'm asking. Like, if you had to predict that fight goes down or that doesn't, can we get this match to the ring?
Hey, first off, Ian Gary is not fighting at this fight card, man. I wish he was, because then he could be the backup fighter, which you and I both love. We're always in the backup fighter. But they put him back with Luque. They put him back with Luque.
Yes. No, that's the thing. Ian Gary is fighting under an assumed name of Vincent Luque. That's right. That's correct. We're both right. Like, two things can be right at the same time. And lots of guys, they use nicknames and monikers and things like that. So the point remains the same. And I'm just wondering if we can get that fight to the ring. I have concerns about Nick's training. I follow him on social media. I love it. He'll put these clips out. But every clip he puts out is with the big gloves, and it's boxing. Even if it's jump rope training, even if it's on the speed bag, or is that, it always looks like boxing. And then I noticed that he was following Little Brother to the events, and he was kind of calling some guys out for boxing. I only bring that to you as I'm not certain where Nick's at with his training. It's very hard to get information from Nick. It's very hard to get a return phone call or information on what's going on there, but his body started to look pretty good. Says he's going down to 170, which is something he failed to do against Lawler, and that's been a couple of years. We generally don't get smaller over time. So I do have some questions here. I'm a supporter. It kind of jumped off the page. Ian Gary's not fighting. Why is he not fighting? Ian Gary has a fight somewhere. Ian Gary should be fighting Colby, and I thought that fight did get announced. I made that up?
You made it up. Ian Gary going to show up. Ian Gary going to show up at UFC 310 with a black hairpiece and a spray tan. Act like he's Vicente Luque trying to beat on Nick Diaz, man. That's terrible, Chael.
That's funny.
He's going to show up with a black toupee and a spray tan trying to beat on Nick Diaz. You know the thing about Nick Diaz for me is I want the guy from the pictures. I'm going to just say it. I'm saying it. I don't want to see Nick Diaz that is just ripped. Bro, when he fought Robbie Lawler, I was so excited because I was like, man, he's been back on the triathlons. He looks better than he even did in his prime. Then when he got into the octagon, he looked nothing like that person, Jill. He looked like a guy that was pushing 40, that hadn't fought in many, many years, and I didn't know if he still had that fight in him. Now, Vicente Luque is thought to be on the decline. I kind of judged him based on how bad Joaquin Buckley beat him, but then now watching Joaquin Buckley do what he did to the kid that was 18-0 or 18-1 in St. Louis, doing what he did to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson a couple weeks ago in Salt Lake City. Now I look back at Vicente Luque and wonder if I was too quick to judgment. Maybe I didn't see how good Joaquin Buckley is opposed to the state of Vicente Luque's career. I still think that's a lot for Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz struggled with Robbie Lawler and Robbie Lawler was only one fight away from retiring. But today, Luque is not going anywhere. It's a tough fight. I think for Nick, though, he has to be really locked in if he wants to go out there and not embarrass himself. Because you got to remember, 10 minutes ago, Chael, we talked about how everything is on the line every single time you go into the octagon. So when Nick Diaz goes in there, it's the Strikeforce Championship is on the line. The WEC Championship is on the line. Everything that he ever did in the octagon starts to get diminished whenever you go out there and you do what you did against Robbie, which was he quit. He was like, I don't want to do this, right? He had to make a decision, and he said, I don't want to do this right now. I'm done. I don't want to fight.
Yes, and by the way, Kirsten has sent me the note. I see now Ian Gary is on the card against Volkov. Ian is fighting under the assumed name of Surreal Gane. What do you think about? What do you think of Surreal Gane versus Volkov? And by the way, I must tell you, I've never really been sold on Volkov. That's a mean thing to say, but I say it from this perspective that it seems that I was wrong. It seems that there is something real special there. When he can get his kickboxing going, by the way, he's very nasty. When he doesn't have to worry about the threat of the takedown, he's very nasty. He's not going to have to worry about that against Surreal Gane. But is Volkov, as long as he is with this reach, is he going to be able to be that imposing and bring his natural skills against somebody as good as Surreal, Surreal had 30 matches in kickboxing alone?
You know what? When we think about Surreal Gane, you think back to this, Chael. We judged Surreal Gane on the John Jones fight because of the way it looked.
Yes.
Right? And that's right. But he was one failed leg lock attempt from actually beating Francis Ngannou. You remember he got the takedown? He tried the thing leg lock and lost a round? That's the only reason he lost.
I thought he won 3-2. I thought we had a new champion.
Exactly. But he does the leg lock when Francis wasn't going anywhere. Francis was just laying there. Surreal Gane could have been the undisputed champion of the world. But then he fights John, and he fights in the way he did. But make no mistake about it, this is a very tough fight for Volkov. Because for as good as Volkov has looked and how good he is, he usually wins when he can be the more fluid, active, set the tempo and pace of a fight. He's not going to be able to do that as easily against Surreal Gane. All those things we used to describe Surreal Gane before are still true.
Sure.
Still moves like a bantamweight. He can still move like no other heavyweight we have. His striking is as elite as anybody we have in the division. He's still all those things. He just got embarrassed in the fight against Jones. So I think this is a great fight. I believe that these two should be matched up. And I believe that as long as Surreal Gane is fighting and as long as Volkov's fighting, they're always going to be around the title picture because they're too good to just disappear. And I believe that of the two, I think the next guy could potentially face the champion, Tom Aspinall. I think if Surreal Gane wins, he's definitely fighting Tom Aspinall next.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting match because Surreal has been gone, and I guess he did a movie. That's what I have heard, and I only share that. I don't love it when a guy leaves. I don't love it when a guy's an expert in a craft, and he is an expert at one point. Surreal here, he was 15-0. In fact, he was 15-0 when he was an interim heavyweight champion. I mean, not for nothing to leave that and to go. And here I am, and I'm telling you, I think he went and did a movie. That's a very big deal. It's not like it was the next Sopranos or something. I know the name of it. Scorsese's directing it, and he's going to be a big blockbuster hit.
He was
it's
not
like that.
He was not in the Scorsese movie. You're a liar.
Right.
He was in a
no,
Scorsese
I'm saying he's
movie?
not. I'm saying I think
okay.
he went and did a movie. The fact that I don't know the name of the movie and I don't certainly that he did it just tells me that why did he do that? Where did he get distracted? Every athlete wants to be an actor, and every actor wants to be an athlete. I don't know why we can't get around that. But meanwhile, Volkov, who's a tall glass of water and a big threat to start with, he's in camp. He's training the whole time. He got a fight in. I mean, I think that those things favor Volkov. I think the odds makers are going to look at Surreal and say that he's the superior fighter. I think that time away matters, and I don't think it's good for him.
He beat Pavlovich bad in Saudi Arabia. He beat on Sergey bad. I didn't expect that. Hey, the guy that makes the best movies in MMA, Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping really is a good actor, man.
I agree.
It sucks to admit it, but he is a really good actor. And
it does suck to admit. Why is that? We like Michael Bisping.
It's something about Bisping.
Is that a jealousy? Because I will see him on screen as well and go, son of a bitch, he did it again.
He did it
He
again.
plays a great bad guy.
Because he is. He plays a great bad guy because at times he can be a bad guy, but it's why we love him. Some of the things Michael Bisping says on TV, when we would sit there and do stuff together and he's talking, Chael, I'm like hitting my microphone like, you have a mic on you. You got to stop because you're about to sink both of us here in a second because I'm going to be guilty by association. He's so crazy.
I was in a bar. I'm not club guy. I get drug into a club in Beverly Hills. I'm there with Miss Brittany when we're still courting, and Michael Bisping's there. I'm so happy. Oh my God, I've got somebody I can go talk to. Oosh. It just wasn't my scene. I come up behind Michael waiting to get his attention. He goes to the bar. He orders 4 Long Islands. The guy tells him he can't do it, and Michael calls the manager over, and all he says is a word. That's all he says. Like, I would like to have a word with a word. They walk outside. I don't know what happened. I started to go out there to make sure he wasn't like outnumbered or something. They turn around, they come back in, they don't speak. They're about 10 feet apart. They get back. The guy makes 4 Long Islands, doesn't charge him for it. I never even said hello. I saw him in a distance and thought, I'll just be over here with Miss Brittany. I'm just saying, when you say he's a bad guy and he's a natural, like, Bisping can pull it off.
Bisping's the man, bro. Bisping is the man. All right, Chael, we got to go, man. Hey, guys, thank you for supporting Good Guy, Bad Guy. Chael, every single week I look forward to this time and time again. UFC 310 is going to be a monster. Dan Hooker's getting his flowers finally. Conor McGregor's still not fighting, so don't get too excited. That was another episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. Get us wherever you get your podcasts. ESPN MMA YouTube, ESPN Plus, and ESPN2. For Chael Sonnen, I'm Daniel Cormier. Until next time, peace.